So hello then, welcome back to another Night of the Movies video. I'm of course Spike Knight, and in these videos I love talking about things, movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's video, I'm reviewing the newest Game of Thrones spin-off, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. So let's get into it, shall we? A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, as I just said, is the new Game of Thrones spin-off. You know, so far in the spin-offs to Game of Thrones, we've had House of the Dragon. There's more coming, but so far we just had House of the Dragon, and that had its second season come out 2 years ago. It's got its third season coming out this year, and then we'll probably have to wait another 2 years to see its fourth and final season. But so far I've only had one Game of Thrones spin-off until now, until this show came out, until A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms started airing about a month ago now, if I'm not mistaken. And this series, if you don't know, basically follows the story of Sir Dunk the Tall and his squire Egg as they explore Westeros whilst the Targaryens rule the Iron Throne. Now, some of those words I've just said might not make any sense to you if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, but funny enough, I think this show is actually a good welcome point to people who perhaps haven't seen Game of Thrones, which, you know, is always something positive. Anyway, I was interested in this series, but I wouldn't say I was particularly excited about it. Partly because I haven't loved House of the Dragon. I've enjoyed it in part. I've enjoyed quite a lot of it, but I don't think it's also nearly as great, you know, as some people make it out to be. Some people make it out as if it's like one of the best TV shows over the past decade, and I'm like, come on guys, Better Call Saul and Succession came out over the past decade. Those shows, in my opinion, are much, much better, but some people absolutely love House of the Dragon. I wish I was one of those people, and when I heard that another Game of Thrones spin-off was happening, I don't know, I thought, oh god, we're going to have more of the same that we had with House of the Dragon. Is there going to be anything particularly interesting about it? And when I heard it didn't have any connections to House of the Dragon, I was like, okay, you know, there could be something there then. I'd like the idea of doing a different kind of Game of Thrones spin-off. But then I heard that the episodes were going to be, that there were only going to be 6 episodes, and each episode was only going to be half an hour long, which I think is kind of ridiculous. At that point, I just think you should make a movie. So, I'd be lying if I said I was excited about seeing this series before it started airing, but I wanted to see it nonetheless, because I am somebody who absolutely adored the first 7 seasons of Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, it ended so badly. I remember when season 8 came out, by the way, I was trying to convince myself for so long that I loved it, and I really didn't. And so yeah, the first 7 seasons of Game of Thrones I thought was spectacular. So I would consider myself a Game of Thrones fan, maybe not as much as some people. My brother is a huge fan of the show, and I'm not nearly as much of a fan as he is. Actually, both my brothers are. But I am somebody who is a fan of the first 7 seasons of Game of Thrones. I liked a lot of House of the Dragon. I even liked quite a bit of season 2, which I know was a bit divisive for some people. So I was hoping to maybe just at least get some enjoyment out of this series. Get some enjoyment out of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. However, I'd be lying if I said any of the trailers did anything for me before I saw it. Still, I watched all 6 episodes. I watched the final episode of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms Season 1, because Season 2 is apparently going to come out next year. I believe it when I see it, but I watched the final episode of Knight of the Seven Kingdoms Season 1 yesterday, and honestly, I really like this show. This is a really good and entertaining series of TV, and the characters are all enjoying and enjoyable to watch in their own way, and I really like the bond between Dunk and Egg. I think that works really well, and the performances are all believable and convincing. I love the fact that it's a grounded story in the Game of Thrones world, particularly as with House of the Dragon, you have dragons flying all over the place, and you know, in this season there's nothing really like that. There's no big special effects type sequences. There are some fight sequences, yes, but they're not necessarily so dependent on special effects the same way they are with House of the Dragon, and I quite enjoy that. I like the fact that this is a different kind of show to House of the Dragon, and I really got into the story the more I went on. I will say, episode 1, after episode 1, I almost gave up on the show. I mean, the show starts off with, and I'm not joking, Cave, in case you haven't seen the show, I'm not making this up, it starts off with somebody having a poo, and I'm like, really? Is that how we're starting this show? But actually, from episode 2 onwards, it picked up, it got better, and the storyline became more engrossing, more engaging, and so did the characters. I started to like them a lot more. I found the comedy funnier from episode 2 onwards, and even though episode 6 felt like sort of the beginning of everything, funnily enough, I did finish episode 6 and think, oh, we're really starting to get going now, and now this series has just ended. Even so, episode 6 kind of felt like a weird place to end season 1. I still would say that overall, season 1 of Night of the Seven Kingdoms was a wonderful watching experience. Yeah, I thought it was a wonderful watch. That being said, I do think this show should have been a film. I do not think that a show with 6 episodes, where each episode is about half an hour long, if that, it's about half an hour long with credits, so really it's about, 25 minutes long. I do not think you should have a show like this. I've heard somewhere, and I don't know if it's true, because I read it online, and, don't believe everything you read online, but I heard that originally HBO wanted this to be a movie. They wanted A Night of the Seven Kingdoms to be their first Game of Thrones movie, and then the writers decided to do something different. And that is kind of what it feels like. It feels like they were writing it as a movie, then in pre-production, before they shot anything, before anything was filmed for the series, they decided to change it to a 6-part series. And that's not to mean that some of the episodic aspects of the series don't work. They do, but I was also watching parts of the series thinking, God, this would have been great to watch in a cinema. This would have been great as our first Game of Thrones movie. And I do think it would have done well, and I think it would have got a whole new audience onto Game of Thrones. Not that the series hasn't on TV, but I think it would have got more people to the cinema as well, because, what I was really surprised by a couple of weeks ago? They re-released the Lord of the Rings trilogy in the cinemas, the extended editions as well, which are the definitive editions. They re-released the classic Lord of the Rings movies in the cinema. And I remember looking to book a seat for, I think it was Return of the King, and the whole cinema was booked out. That doesn't usually happen with the cinemas I go to. And I think that if a Game of Thrones movie came out, and if it was this story, and if it was as good, or even better, as the series ended up being, I think people would have gone to see this in the cinema loads. I think it would have easily found an audience, and I think it would be insanely popular. And I think putting it on TV was kind of a mistake, because it really, in my opinion, in parts felt like it was originally planned to be a 3-hour movie or 2.5-hour movie, and then they decided to put it as a TV show, which meant they had to extend parts here and there. And it also meant that, again, at least in my opinion, parts of the series dragged a little, because they were trying to extend it, because they were trying to make it into a TV series, into a 6-part TV series. And you don't really want that from a 6-part TV series where each episode is about half an hour long. You don't want parts to drag a little. And yet, in my opinion, it felt like that was the case. And I really felt like this show should have been a movie. I really felt like A Night of the Seven Kingdoms should have been a movie after episode 4 ended with that cliffhanger where you see the big fight that the show's kind of been building up to that point. You see this big fight about to begin. I was thinking, oh, now I'm going to have to wait a week to watch how the fight continues. And I was like, oh, but if it was in the cinema, I could see that moment. I just feel so much more, I just think it'd be so much more effective. And I think personally it should have been a film. I think this should have been Game of Thrones' first venture into the world of cinema. And I think it would have been a great first step into the world of cinema. I think this would have worked so well as a movie. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't work as a TV show, but a part of me kind of wishes it wasn't a TV show. And I know there'll be people who disagree with me there, but I do think eventually we will get a Game of Thrones movie, whether it's in the cinema or on streaming. And I feel now like, I don't know, this could have been, and what we'll eventually get, will it be as good? I'm not sure. That being said, even so I do have my problem that I do think this should have been a movie, there is still a lot to like, particularly in the episodic structure. It's not bad as a series. Again, I just think it would have been better as a movie. I really like the way certain parts are structured. Like, for instance, episode 5, I thought was going to be this big fight sequence for about half an hour, and actually there's a bit more to it because it cut back and you learned more about Dunk's past. I really like how that was done. The fight sequences are really well done, and there's a lot of this show which is actually well directed and doesn't feel like what we've seen in the Game of Thrones world before, and actually in a good way. There's a bit more of a light-hearted nature when it comes to the series, and I like that about it. You know, Game of Thrones, well, a lot of the time, in the main series, it was really downhearted and depressing, and House of the Dragon is as well. I remember, like, one of the first episodes of House of the Dragon, God, I was, like, almost in tears because of how depressing it was, and the first episode of Season 2 was also incredibly depressing. Whilst there is dark elements that happen in this show is also a bit more upbeat. It's got comedy in there, and sometimes comedy that you've seen before, but actually it's not done in the way you've seen it in this show, if you follow my thinking. And here's the thing, here's one of the reasons this show works so well. When it works at its best, it hits the mark, and it hits it where it needs to, emotionally, narratively, and character-wise. And that is where I really get into this series, and that's where it really works for me. There's a lot to really like in the series. The production quality is on screen in the way you want it to be, and again, the characters, you really grow to like them more as you go on. You really grow to like, and you really find each character more interesting as well. And yeah, I did really enjoy watching A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms at the end of the day. But I'd also be lying to myself and lying to you if I said that I thought it was as good as the best of Game of Thrones. Like, in my opinion, the best seasons of Game of Thrones are seasons 4 through to 6. I think those seasons are just absolutely incredible, and I've heard some people say, "Oh, this is just as good as the best of Game of Thrones," and I'm like, is it really? Is it really as good as Game of Thrones season 4? Is it really good as? Is it really as good as Game of Thrones season 6 when you had like the Battle of the Bastards? You know, is it really as good as those seasons? I'm not sure it is, personally. And so, yeah, I don't think this is quite on the level of the best of Game of Thrones. I would say, in parts, I enjoyed it more than House of the Dragon, but even House of the Dragon, I think, leaves you with a bit more meat on your bone, you know? And I do think this is, again, a really well done show, and I enjoyed watching it quite a bit, but I don't think it's nearly as good as some people make it out to be. Some people are making it out as if, like, again, the greatest series of the past decade. And some people are saying, oh, it's riveting, it's engrossing, everything about it is just so wonderful to watch. And I didn't find it all engrossing. I didn't find it all riveting. And I thought that actually at times it dragged a little. And it felt like it was trying to make up for time that, well, they originally planned it to be for a movie, you know? So, yeah. I enjoyed A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms quite a bit. I really liked it, in fact. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next. There's a lot of subtlety in this series, which I think is really effective. And there's a lot of character moments, which I really enjoyed. And again, the whole series is really good to watch. I just don't love it, personally. And I think that's why I'm going to say that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, that's why I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. If you love it, that's great. I don't want to take that away from you. I did not enjoy it. Sorry, that's what I meant to say there. I did not enjoy it. But I was just hoping for a little bit more, you know? And I don't think a show should be 6 episodes that are only half an hour each, you know? That's not really what we should be getting with a TV show like this. We should be getting a lot more story in there, and I don't know, it felt like they were trying to fill in time here and there, but again, I liked the characters, I liked the world building, I liked how the chemistry is between our main 2 characters, and I also really like the musical score. The musical score is not by Ramin Djawadi this time. Ramin Ramin Djawadi, if I pronounced his name correctly, apologies if I didn't, he did the music to all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones and both seasons of House of the Dragon, but he did not do the musical score to this season, to this Game of Thrones spin-off. He, in fact, Dan Rome did the score to this spin-off, and I like the fact that it's got a different musical score to it because it creates a different feel of the show, and I like the fact that it's a different kind of show than we see in the Game of Thrones world. I just would be lying if I said I was enamoured by it, if I said I was thinking about it all the time, if I said I came away from each episode going, wow, what an episode of television, wow, I absolutely loved that, the same way some other people did. Again, I still think it was a really enjoyable watch, but as good as the best of Game of Thrones, I'm not sure about that myself, and at the end of the day, I think it should have been a movie. I think if I saw this in the cinema, I would have come out loving it a lot more. I would have come out liking it a lot more, you know? And I think it also would have been more effective as a story overall. But instead, I do think you get some slow parts and some parts that drag, and I don't think it quite works as... I don't think it is quite as brilliant as people make it out to be, personally. But then again, I still really enjoyed it, so there's that. Yeah, I did think it was worth a watch, but I can't escape the feeling that it would have been better as a movie, personally. But that's just me. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in today's video, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is an 8 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's video. If you have seen Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching this video today. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And look forward to many more videos like this coming very soon on this channel. If you haven't yet, please, as I've already said, if you haven't yet, please do like and subscribe. And I will. Yeah, see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.